come on, this needs to work for us all. Hello there, good evening. Good evening. Holly, Lucy and Ali, come on, stand up and let us all say thank you for your work. Thank you for organising this meeting. Thank you very much, ladies. I must say, when you're invited to speak somewhere, the work that these three ladies have put on in the background to make sure that everything's right for us, that we're comfortable, the professionalism has been phenomenal. Thank you. So, I'm James and this is Thomas, but we have had a great little scoot round WoolNEss today. Thomas was nabbed. It wasn't as bad as the time that we got the phone call from a wool shop, and I, one cannot say names because I have not had half the bottle of gin yet. It was one that one could say was up north slightly further north than here. And I get this phone call going, James, I need to book another event in our shop with you for Nibble. I said, fabulous. She said, I've got a waiting list of 250. I said, what? I looked in her marketing. Dr. Thomas, the gynecologist, is going to visit the haberdashery. Now, Thomas does geriatrics, not gynecology, and
Slightly.
Anyway, I'm James, and this is Dr. Thomas, or Tommy to me, or him indoors. And tell me, where do you hide your stash? Come on. You display. Go over this side. What do you do with your stash? Sorry? Right, we've tried that one too. I had an accident. What about over here?
Under the bed.
Done that one. Anybody else?
Don't hide it.
Don't hide it. That's the problem. It's the moths.
Okay.
Lucy? That's a very good idea. So, you see, to let you in a little bit about our domestic arrangement here, when our doorbell goes and Thomas isn't at work and it goes bing bong, I'm really good at just looking sheepish. And then Thomas arrives into my den and that little boy voice comes on. And he's 53 and he can still do it, so you have to give him credit for it. Oh no, James, not more wool, not more wool. We're drowning in wool. Does anybody else have this problem? Yeah? I suppose you're normal then, Thomas. But you see, Thomas doesn't know the half of it, nor does Tommy understand the real need for that extra yarn. Why both the DK and the worsted weights of that particular colourway are required within my stash. Thomas is a very kind man, but does not appreciate how thoughtful I'm being that I skip over the Aran weight on that purchase on that colourway. You see, my den is my stable, and that is my stash acquired beyond life expectancy. Thomas, you are a doctor. How many balls do I need?
Minimum 2.
Right, because knitting takes balls. That is fact. You heard it from the doctor. A little spare for darning, perhaps? It's not about buy what you need, is it? Really? No. Come on, let's be honest. You're helping me as much as I'm talking now. Listen, right? So, it's about that delicious, soft colour for knitting. That idea that is in your head right now, and let's be realistic, you've had many when you walk through WoolNEss. But do you ever get round to making it? No, this does not need discussed in polite society. Yes, I have filled under my side of the divan. God bless the divan bed. Hides many sins in my home. In the spare bedroom, in my den, and Thomas, this will be news for you. This will be news for you, Thomas. I have taken the side off the bath. And it's amazing how many balls and skeins I can hidden away in all sorts of glorious colourways. And you got no clue about it, really, do you? But then again, I do have you as the best dressed hospital in the winter, best dressed doctor in the hospital that you work in. What's in your needles, Dr. Thomas?
Patience. No fool.
Hands up who suffers from a syndrome. Come on. Tell the truth and shame the devil, as my mother would say. You see, I do. After all, it's fashionable, especially when you're labelled a doctor's wife, to have at least one syndrome to discuss at a dinner party, and we are here at a dinner party. Constantly in my life, on average of every 2 weeks, I suffer from second sleep syndrome. It is an agitation, it is a lack of will, and a contributing factor to my work in progress stash. Does everybody have a work in progress stash? Yeah. Why have one project when you can have 32? Why? Back to the second sleep syndrome. I mean, I always start with good intentions. A joy and excitement by that new yarn and the colourway. I mean, sometimes you see a new colour and you just have to sniff it for different colour. Just the look and the softness isn't enough. You need to be. So my knit sweater knitting formula is easy on the flat needles. I know we can get more complex and do the 5 sticks or do the circulars. But, you know, if I'm doing it in the flat, it's back, front, 2 sleeves, neckband, sew up, wear until dirty, rinse and repeat. And all this is okay, and the back knits up beautifully. And in the front, remember to do my decreases here and here, you know. First sleeve. And then my joie de vie just goes. Just goes. It sinks faster than the pound at the moment, really. And then it just stops. And I don't know why. I just seem to fold all neatly, having to avoid the blocking out because it's not finished yet. Place them neatly into a bag to prevent moths and attack, and there we sit. Until he comes in into my den and demands that my work in progress bags reduce. Rude. On many occasions I've told Thomas not to comment on my stash in my den or I will get my whip out. Always using your Northern Irish accent to your advantage. I skip past the H in that whip. Thomas gives in and does not realise I'm talking about my work in progress bags, which if emptied would cover more floor area than my den. Is this familiar? You see, Dr. Thomas has a disease himself. It's called yarn myopia. And yarn myopia is a syndrome where Thomas is heavily afflicted and he cannot see the difference in 2 balls and 20. The fact that there are lots of balls in our home, I can see the difference. I can see fronts and I can see backs. I can see throws and scarves and brown paper packages tied up with string. Yarn is one of my favourite things. But the good doctor is not able to see this. We did try Specsavers, that didn't work either. And then we've other knitting syndromes that we've come across. I don't think we've made the British Medical Journal or the Lancet yet, but we keep trying. There is second sock syndrome, and this is different to second sleeve syndrome because there's a slight mutation in this syndrome due to heel turning. There is a chronic knitting syndrome, and this one I really suffer from. This one affects any walk of life. It does not discriminate. It's when you go to bed at night and you try to finish those few rows and you wake it up and it's there the next morning. But you've dropped 3 stitches that you have to pick up with your coffee. Is this familiar? Then, this is actually, this one is cruel. I personally find this degrading. It's called first sock syndrome. And that's when knitting for a paid commission and you don't like the colour. Everybody been there? I call this #toad, trashed object abandoned in disgust. This one is sexual syndrome. This is called It's Too Nice to Knit With syndrome. Yeah. Does anybody else do things with yarn porn? That one's got sparkles. It's not turning out how I envisaged, so I'm going to put it to one side and hope that it transforms syndrome. #wrong size. Look at the face of that. I also call this denial, and it's a good way to hide your yarn hoarding. Every knitter loves a bit of frogging. Or every knitter knows somebody who does frogging. And finally, I reckon this is one of the biggest problems, and is a pandemic. For only £7 you can buy a new ball. Send no more money now. Shops will be open again in the morning. This is pro blow. This is projects beyond life expectancy. But on a manly level, my male urges have really been challenged in this industry, because sex to me is now a stash enhancement expedition. That's a good one, isn't it? Yeah. I need your credit card for sex, Thomas. Debit will do. So talking about syndromes, I want to tell you my story about wellness through WoolNEss. I'm alive because of knitting. So hands up, who knows somebody who suffered from depression, anxiety, panic attacks, OCD, you know the way, all those letters, you know, bit of Asperger's, bit of this, bit of that. Thank you. Does anybody get what I call the fear? When you wake it up in the morning and you just go, oh, you know? Statistics from the charity Mind state that 1 in 4 people in the UK will suffer at least once in any given year. And I am not ashamed that I suffered. And I'm really proud that my career has allowed me to travel and tell people about it. Something that people see as shame. I always believed that somebody suffering from depression needed a good kick up the backside to get on with life. That was until the black dog that his depression arrived in my house. And may I state clearly, at this point in my life, before the black dog that his depression bit me, I was in my prime. I was diagnosed with a moderately severe depressive episode. What? Life-loving me? This did not make any sense. At the time, I was 35, and I could not physically move my leg down the bed. I could not get out of bed. I was not lazy. I just could not move. This didn't make any sense. Things had bottled up, one thing after another. And then one day, the final snap came. I'd been publicly betrayed in my native Northern Ireland. It was too much to bear. fear, anxiety, panic attacks. This catatonic physical state when I couldn't move, panic, black, fear, more fear, bit of anxiety, black, very black. See, if you have not been through the midlife crisis, take note. Make it spectacular, because you only get one opportunity for the midlife crisis. Because when you fall, let it be memorable. Mine was, like me, fabulous. So much so that some of it played out in primetime TV. Meanwhile, while I was breaking, I was also breaking the mould. I have never done things normally. Why would you? I spent my gap year in Siberia. I did. When you grow up on a farm in Northern Ireland, how far can you go? I went to Siberia for 6 months. And for my career, I used to present food TV in China. When my depression arrived, my business failed. You know those lovely banking adverts you get? That they're with you for... They took my car. They came, and I lost the sports car. When I said I did the midlife crisis different, I did. Instead of getting the sports car, I lost the sports car. And I opted for the older model in the form of Dr. Thomas, who may not look so good in a bikini, but he looks great in a raglan, even though he's going to sleep free tonight. My head was the deepest black. I had no energy. Remember, I was 35. I was in my prime. I had no energy. The depths of this sadness were too much to bear. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't function. I lost me. All I could do every day to calm my anxiety, and anxiety is real, but anxiety is not true. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? You know it is a load of nonsense, but it is so real and scary. And for me, I was convinced. I was on the bus where we live in London, and somebody was going to just knife me from behind, cut me throat. And it was very, very real, but I knew it wasn't true. So to calm this anxiety, all I could do every day was stay in bed and watch TV. That's not a life. It's really not a life. I couldn't get out of bed. Thomas, he loved me through it. And as a doctor himself, he was aware I was acutely ill. I was conscious my life was wasting away, and I felt deep shame from this. Because what I learned about a mental illness is there's lots of cogs going in different directions at different times. And shame being put on you because you can't function is cruel. I was a distant shadow of myself. My life was wasting away. I didn't know what to do or the energy to it. I had no reward, and at least if we lived in Dr. Thomas's native Germany, I would have been given the title and reward of Frau Doktor. Instead, I was lumbered with the title of the doctor's wife. The Old Boys Club in the United Kingdom is inherently cruel. But more business is done at the dinner table than in the boardroom. I was thankful that I studied for a Master of Arts in Home Economics, and I used to work in the Good Housekeeping Institute. Yes, you are looking at the original Mr. Menopausal Monthly. That's what we call Good Housekeeping when we worked there in the Institute, and we always specialised in the, what do they call it, tried, tested and thrusted or something that we did for the magazine every month. You see, the non-defined gender roles of today's society save the day. I had been very successful in life. I was the only Westerner to ever present food television in China. I used to get 100 million viewers a week on my TV shows. If you're flying Air China, you can still see me in the seatback TV, I believe. I was awarded with the equivalent of a BAFTA in China. And remember, China's communist, so I was the only Westerner to ever do this. One of my best friends used to be the personal chef of Xi Jinping, the chairman of the People's Republic of China. And Foreigners Weekly magazine in 2012, just after the Olympics, I was awarded with a gold medal as Britain's Food Ambassador of the Year. In my spare time, I was the global ambassador for Aga Cookers. I had a very long relationship with them. I launched them all over the world. And had the privilege of bringing Aga and Rangemaster, the great British cookers, to China. It's the first time an oven was ever brought to China. because they use woks. And I taught them to cook a very famous cake, the Victoria sandwich, which ended up in Chinese newspapers that James invented a cake for the Queen's grandmother. Dr. Thomas is a senior consultant physician in a large teaching hospital in central London. Thomas meditates for 3 hours a day, every day. And I assure you, there were 3 of us in this marriage, and it's just a little bit crowded. But his dedication to the practice of mindfulness is a blessing. It shows its fruits in our home, in our lives both together and separate. He's the only NHS consultant that we know of that operates a mindfulness clinic to treat chronic illness and pain. His inpatients are geriatrics, and his outpatients are related to autonomics. That's faints and blackouts and dizzy spells to you and me. His working hours are long and very demanding. But through my illness, Thomas would literally carry me into the bathroom to help me with the most simple of tasks. I just couldn't. I felt ashamed. I could not function. I honestly don't know, Thomas, how you were my carer and kept your career. Thank you for loving me in sickness and in health, Thomas.
That wasn't an easy job, of course, wasn't. As you imagine, a 12-hour job, heavy workload, problems at work as well, and having another job at home, doing things like washing, shopping, cooking, running a household, next to all the things that come with actually having your own home. So quite hard and demanding, and of course it's not just James's energies that start dropping, but also mine. And if both of us drop, then we can basically close up and move under London Bridge. So it's basically it's quite hard for me to work through that, and that's really where the whole thing about mindfulness came in. Because I had to find a way of making up that energy, that gap, and holding myself above water. And I learned that by doing mindfulness, I could do that. And it's quite astonishing what strength comes if you're simply accepting the problem, literally, to be here. That's all really I did. Just sort of stood there and thinking, this is pretty awful. Shit came to mind, but and there it is, yeah. I don't have a solution to this, and I just simply waited. What would happen if you just simply sit there and let it all happen? And it was pretty awful. And subsequently things came slowly up. And depression is an illness, I learned. Well, I knew, but I started realizing that it is an illness. It's not something that you just push yourself through, you know. Get kick at bum, as James said. It's actually in the ICD-10. It's a defined condition, a defined diagnosis, and it requires a certain approach and treatment. Most important is that you accept that the person don't just needs a kick up the bum to get going, but actually requires a structured approach and some medication and support, and including mindfulness, I would say. So tough times, but it was worth it, absolutely worth it.
Oh, that's really thick. Thank you.
Maybe more later.
In my illness, Thomas sent his ward sister Suzanne to our home after her shift on the ward, and in a Southern Irish brogue she'd say, "Stick the right one into the loop on the left, wrap it over, pull it off, and let's go again, James." Sister knows a thing about knitting and wellness. Handing a ball of yarn to a demented patient can stop the screams of anguish as they are hospitalised, reliving their fears. Dr. Thomas will always say that we must confront our fears to move on, either to another stage in our life or at the end of our life. And understandably, confronting your fears is daunting and scary. People like Thomas and Sister in the ward, they make the NHS the treasure it is that we must protect now more than ever. And we must encourage therapeutic knitting into all many sorts of conditions, syndromes, illnesses and diseases. Called social prescribing. But it has to be done in conjunction with medications. I don't remember why I started to knit, but I found 2 chopsticks and a piece of string in the flat, watched the YouTube, learned how to cast on, and before I knew it, I had knitted a something or other. I showed it to Tommy and he said, "Let's get the folia." I bought some big boys, me 12 millimeters, and I started to learn to knit in beige alpaca. It's an itchy bloody thing. It's a little bit shapeless. It's a little bit... I didn't know how to read a knitting pattern. I was doing for a 36-inch chest, which was me. But I got mixed up somewhere along the way. See, the resulting product is shapeless, but this thing, apart from being a great Halloween costume, and it's nice and warm, this is my trophy that lives will live for many years, albeit at the back of the wardrobe. Do you know why it'll live at the back of the wardrobe? Because moths never eat the ugly items, do they? I remember putting this misshapen thing on, looking in the mirror, and for the very first time in I don't know how long, feeling proud of me again. Albeit looking like a grown-up Von Trapp child with knitted curtains for my outfits. But I thirsted colour in so many ways. Colour is life and colour is healing. You go to WoolNEss, you see the colour, and you just feel happy, don't you?
Yep.
There's something about colour when we can put it into our lives. And there was a great quote I heard a while ago. What's your favourite colour? All of them. At this point in my life, beige was as bright a colour as I could actually deal with. My first knitted garment allowed me to love myself again. A deeply precious and intimate feeling that Northern Irish homophobia had stripped from me. I phoned my mum one day and I said, "Mum, my head's like a metal box and the hammers inside won't stop banging." You see, when you suffer with a mental illness, the silence is the loudest noise because it never stops. Northern Irish mums are great ladies. Mums are great ladies. Within a few hours, Mum had flown from our family farm in the middle of nowhere in Northern Ireland to our home in Peckham, the posh part, where Thomas and I live. Mum and I started to talk. I started to get better. We went to John Lewis. Mum knit the ribs. I did the stocking stitch. Thomas put it in the boil wash. I had to start again. Both of that boiled washed item in my career. You see, the tablets were kicking in at this stage. I was getting better. A doctor's wife on antidepressants. Oh, the stereotypes are harsh. Fuck that, I thought. We had to go to the annual Summer Society event. So I put my knitting into the pocket of my tuxedo, put on me dicky bow. One became rather popular at this event. It's amazing. Once you get past the sadness of what you do, knit one, purl one. Once you get past that, everybody is enthralled by your knitting. It actually is quite a good thing to bring to a occasion when before that. So through all of this, my mind was racing. All of this, doctor's wife. I'm a bloke. I could not stop. My cold sweats were reality. That tender little flame that is my soul was oxidising in the naked air as it was being hit and hit by Northern Irish homophobia. Even though we lived in London, it was still being hit by the homophobia at home, and also by stereotypes in society. My little inner candle flame that was my soul, that all I am and all that I held dear, was nearly blown out. So that one stitch and then another, it allowed a sense of calm. Really quickly the noise stopped. The anxiety was controllable. The panic wasn't there. Get in half a row of knitting, you're in a different world. It's the Narnia of life. A creation growing that I had made on my needles when my self-respect had been taken from me. A reason for me to be proud, to find what's called your circadian rhythm. You know, your own body has its rhythm. And you find it when you knit. And everybody's is different. You're in tune with your body, and you find this with your knitting needles. Each stitch for me became a breath, each breath became a feeling. Each feeling was acknowledged and understood. Each stitch is a tangible product that my feelings were worth something, and that they needed to be understood, and that I was worth something. And this is just basic psychiatry. The tablets are not a quick fix or happy pills. They're thoroughly boring pharmaceuticals. They give you a baseline, a middle C, a lattice in which to stand. They don't help you move when you stand, but you can't stand. Side effects too, dreams so vivid yet cathartic, metallic tastes, nausea, enlarged tummy, and the list goes on. Slowly as these knitted items grew from my needles, my confidence was growing too. The tatters of my mind were being knit back together one stitch at a time. I was able to leave our home again. I was able to have a life, and like the snowdrops in early February that pushed their way up hard through the frost to live and bloom, that's how I felt I was again. I learned to talk about my feelings, to realise that they were valid, that they were mine, and they needed to be understood. A stitch in time saved my mind. I call this knittation, a mindfulness practice that brought joy back to my life through hand knitting. You see, I could see in colour again. Tommy came home one evening and noticed that I was able to have washed all the laundry. That was never my job or my thing in life. He likes to do the laundry, but he was quite surprised I'd done something. I was not exactly better at this point, but what is better? Do you know, the worst party you go to is something full of normal people. Right? I love a bit of spectrum. Right? Bit of quirkiness, bit of life, bit of, don't like the word better. But I was starting to regain a bit of my normal, better function, you know what I mean? And the stitches were growing on my needles, and I'm proud to say I am better, whatever that is. While I'm standing here, I'm alive and I'm still knitting. And I'm waking up at 6 a.m. every morning, and I now have a purpose. How did I get better? Hand knitting. Holding those two needles in front of me gave me support. It allowed a barrier between me and somebody else. That my personal space was not being invaded, and I always had two weapons. This was my safety net to get better. The anxiety stopped when I was knitting. My head was calm. I was never any good at the traditional mindfulness or meditation. You see, I am a fidgeter. Standing still and feeling the present, it just didn't work for me. Embrace the negatives, he would say. Don't hide them, James. Learn to love them. I did not want to do this. It was too painful and daunting. Moreover, I did not understand what he was on about. I mean, negatives are not nice things, and I don't know about you, but personally, I am not into mental sadomasochism. I had enough of this mental pain, so I spent many arguments with him indoors, shunning the advice. You know how it is at home. I gave in. I wanted some relief from the yakking. She said, right, Thomas, how to embrace the negatives? While I was thinking negatives about embracing the negatives. Thomas explained mindfulness. Again. My head was not able to concentrate in the present, so ever creative Thomas suggested mindful movements. Picture the scene. We are standing in our living room in Peckham, the posh part, listening to a CD whilst being aware of the present, moving, as per instructed, to the voice of a monotone man who's telling me to move in a particular fashion. One leg in the air, looking like a ninja in full flamingo position, or flamingo in full ninja mode, or something like that. Load of nonsense. I continue. Next thing, I'm lying with my belly on the floor, instructed by this monotone voice to form the position entitled the lower cobra. I was thinking about Indian cobra beer at this point. Thomas next to me taking it all very, very seriously indeed. And my inner core strength gave way. I was thinking of the cobra beer. My nose hit the rug. I started to laugh. The doctor wasn't impressed. Well, it was quite simple. Thomas, is the Dyson broken? Because I smell dust in this carpet. Safe to say, mindful movements weren't for me. But when was the last time that you moved mindfully? Thought about the actions and sensations in your body when you're carrying out an everyday task, like opening the fridge, buttering the toast, doing your shoelaces, cleaning your teeth, walking down your hall. When you are actively feeling the sensations of your body while doing these, it's just feeling. Just being in the present and feeling your body and accepting the feelings and sensations is what they call mindfulness. And it doesn't involve sniffing my carpet in the posh part of Peckham. It's just feeling and acknowledging what is here and now in the present and embracing it. And if that involves the negatives, let your body feel these negatives because it can deal with them. Negatives are in the past. They can't hurt you anymore. So when I started to learn to do this, panic subsided, anxiety was subdued, worry was dealt with by my body. I learned the body actually has the answer. It's about spending time with the body, and hand knitting for me is the same, feeling the yarn and needles in my fingers as a stitch is formed. This is my meditation. I can feel this. I can feel my bum in the seat. I can feel my back against the seat, and I can be conscious of what my feet feel like on the floor. This is meditation. It's my form of mindfulness that brought joy back to my life. The market was barren for men knitting. Knitting patterns said, knit for your man. It was very hard for the folk to enter the knitting market. All of this to find a jumper in colour that was not baggy, that fitted, that was fashionable, and did not make me look like the front of a Val Doonigan LP album. I had less than £20 in my pocket at this point. I'd lost my business. I had to start again. So I raised the money by crowdfunding to get some knitting patterns together, because there were no knitting patterns from any of the big design houses that a man wanted to wear of my age. Men my age shop in places like Superdry. Our clothes are fitted. They are not baggy jumpers. That's a little bit 1990. We are now 2019. So I had to learn to read knitting pattern after seeing that jumper. You understand why. I found a photographer, I found an editor, I got sponsorship, I located models, and I wrote my marketing plan. I knit in planes, I knit in tubes, trains and night buses, in nightclubs. So if you go to the Vauxhall Tavern on a Sunday night, you can sometimes see me knitting next to a drag queen on stage. Thomas and I were getting a night bus home about a year or so ago to Peckham, going through the not posh part of Peckham to the posh part. And the bus stopped, and it was about 4 o'clock in the morning. And shall we say, some very well-oiled individuals came onto the top deck while I was doing my knitting. And I was cruising for a bruising, really, you know, and I was panicking and was just doing my thing. And this guy who looked like the ringleader was flying high on his alcohol and whatever else. Oi, mate, can I feel your ball? My granny used to knit. I had this bunch of angry louts sitting down talking about me knitting because of the love of their grannies and their memories. It's precious what we have. So I even taught the Chinese army to knit. I designed my jumpers and I can now write knitting patterns. And I learned that ease and wear are very important in knitting patterns, because making a knitting pattern for a different size is not just mathematics. You have to make it look good on the person, and maths does not allow for ease and wear. So I learnt a lot. I opened my own publishing company, McIntosh Publishing, and I had to find distribution for my book that I was going to bring out. I made a video to put on crowdfunding about my depression. While the crowdfunding campaign was going, messages arrived, handwritten letters, many of them, stories of people's anxieties and depression, thanking me for being honest. It's a bit heavy. It's humbling to know that my honesty had saved lives in this subject that's not easy to talk about, that many call shame, and that I term depression as the cancer of the mind, because it does not discriminate and it devours everything healthy it finds. Love flows through knitting needles. I produced a book in colour, developed knitting patterns and accessories that were not feminine, but were gender neutral. Jumpers that were fitted and not baggy, recipes to nibble at knitting club, and games to play with yarn. Surely gender is the biggest lie in life. All gender says is, I can't, or you're not allowed. Knit and Nibble is a book of joy. Intro by Dr. Thomas, about how knitting is a form of mindfulness that we call meditation, and the visuals are stunning. You on the screen, Thomas?
No.
The title of the most innovative book in the world, at the World Cookbook Awards, were bestowed upon Knit and Nibble. I was flown to China for this. There were 191 countries there. I got on stage and I started to cry, and it wouldn't stop. The tears are healing, and they were tears of colour and joy. And now Knit and Nibble has been shortlisted for the best knitting book in the UK at the British Knitting and Crochet Awards. Please vote for me. So Knit and Nibble, well, it's a book and brand of joy aimed at male knitters, but everything is gender neutral. Why men? Well, there's a gap in the market, a huge one. And the outcomes for men with mental health matters are not so good. My knitting group that I started in Peckham about 2 years ago has about 140 members. Please do not consider this success. Do you know what 140 drop stitches is like? 50% of my group is male. We meet on alternate Tuesday nights. And the status quo of knitting patterns and of the different stitches is present in my group. But does the industry leave us all behind? pattern images are inherently heterosexual. 2.4 children, Anglo-Saxon, when 1 in 4 British school children are of black and other ethnic origins, according to the BBC. I found in the industry, I was confronted by everything that I and my friends and my community is not. I found it really hard to go into a wool shop because of it, but I kept going and I made my own. But I'm no longer depressed. Thomas and I have had some very, very tragic news on both sides of our family in this past few weeks. And it's been hard. But as they say, the proof of the pudding is in the knitting. My knittation has kept my mood stable. Yes, I am sad. Yes, we have tears in private. But our climate is good. There is more to this knitting malarkey than just a sweater, you know. Knit and Nibble is my comeback. It's gone global in 6 months, with international imprints, never mind the listings in the UK and North America. Every day I just give my thanks. The press have been so supportive. We woke up one morning to find a 2-page article in the Telegraph called Pearls of Wisdom. The Telegraph! Magazines talk about the joy of colours in the book, and Let's Knit magazine said we can't get enough of James McIntosh. Woohoo! And it goes on. We ended up in Sky News. And we're now getting some contracts for Channel 4. So what have I learned? That the role of the doctor's wife is perhaps the same as the vicar's wife. It should be known as their partner, because it takes 2 to do the job. Perhaps that's why knitting is so femininely orientated, as the wife has had more to carry than society has appreciated, while the other half deals with every life and death and cut and bruise in between. The strength for that comes from those knitted stitches. The biggest negative I found was not dealing with the negative, is not talking about the negative or recognizing the negative. Remember, 2 negatives make a positive, so when you have a negative, embrace it, because it fixes it. Embracing the negatives is not a scary process. After all, they are in the past, and as you knit, providing you're right-handed, the future is in your hand. What have I found through all of this? I found my best friend through meditation. And you know what? He's worth getting to know. I like him. I've become quite close to him. And I've got to spend time with him and get to love him. I found my best friend was me. I found that my self-confidence came back, my self-worth. That what anybody else said, that's what they said. That wasn't me. I realised that Whitney Houston was right. That learning to love yourself is the greatest gift of all, and that when you do this, no one can ever take away your dignity. So PSSO. That's the moral of the story. PSSO. Pass the slip stitch over. You see, when you want a nice crisp, preaching second verse here, but when you want that raglan line super sexy crispy, you pass the slip stitch over, don't you? Because you know if you do a knit 2 together for your decrease, you're left with a wee bubble. But you also know that they're going to be, when you do mattress stitch, those stitches are going to be hidden. But only you as the knitter knows the beauty in there of the work. It's like society and life, when you have to put your inner beauty under the carpet for everybody else's shame. Pass that slip stitch over and do it in love. Because you know that beauty. My dreams, I can have them again. My hopes are becoming a reality. Life is good. Dr. Thomas has learned not to put knitwear items into the boil wash anymore. I'm James McIntosh and I'm back, and it's because of hand knitting that I am here. Stitches are life, knitting patterns are our manual. Knitters are fabulous, knitters produce a hug, and the sum of the parts of knitting, they make us whole. Stitch in time saved my mind that I call knittation. I'm going to leave you with a private confession right now, and that's that I do not know how to be a crochet. Yeah, I do not know how to crochet, but I have a private ambition to be a hooker by 45. I am James McIntosh, and I can say that now, and I couldn't before. And I knit and nibble, celebrating life's patterns, recipes and games. Thank you. Keep knitting. Don't dismiss it. It saves your mind.